when you see that in action, there's a level of trust I have, in terms of I know that they'll do a good job. I know my children will be well taught and taken care of. And I know that if there's an issue, they'll tell me about it and they will work with me to solve it.
I'm Glenn Herbert, and I'm an editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private schools to gain insights into their programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administrators. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
I think initially we were looking for daycare options. So prior to coming to the school, we looked at other daycares in the same vicinity and we attended them. They were all play-based. And I guess, through those two experiences, we didn't have a preference for those, more leaning towards the academics. And so, in choosing daycare, obviously our mindset was also, well, it's not just the first, after the 12 and 18 months, but, a little further perhaps before they enter school age and, thereafter. And so we were looking a little bit more forward thing for academic. And so happily ABC was also in the same catchment site. And we went for, a school visit. We met with the administrators. We, looked at some of the classrooms and just an overall feeling of, how the school conducts themselves in terms of the academic. And of course, there's play as well, but the focus was more towards academics for our selection. And therefore, we decided, to take the older boy out of the play-based daycare and then into ABC Montessori for the more academic focus. Because that's something we were, leaning towards, just be able to gravitate that to have a better transition into perhaps public school and the school environment. But
that never happened.
Yeah. I mean, we loved it so much that we decided to continue, factoring, all the other factors of pulling the child out of a setting that he's familiar with and comfortable with the teachers and his peers. But there was always that option to perhaps change at any time, if we didn't feel that it kind of met his needs or the program itself. But we've stuck through it, so my child now is in grade 3, and he will be going to grade 4 in the same school. And yeah, we've loved the experience, and that's our second child. When it came to
there was no discussion or even contemplation of him going anywhere else.
Yeah, so with the second child, it was immediately entry into the toddler program. We didn't even entertain like the play-based daycare settings, just because we saw the benefits and how our older son was thriving in it, that it was a natural progression for the two children to be at the same school.
Okay. And as a research question, did you guys ever use Our Kids while looking for schools?
I would say because they started there so young and continuously, it just became part of them growing up, right? So what also, we see a lot of the things that's being taught in school reflected back at home in terms of behavior, right? They're taught good manners. Their academics are quite surprising still in terms of the things that they're able to do, like even at a very young age. Like Austin right now is 5 and he's equivalent in senior kindergarten, and he can read most things, right? Like the long words, he needs a little help with, but he just naturally reads things without hesitation. And you see that progression throughout the year. And even though we had one child go through this the program already, it's still quite shocking in terms of the things that they are able to do by the end of the year compared to when they first started at the beginning of the year. So
yeah, and day-to-day habits too, that I believe they do at school, like tidying up, put their shoes on the boot tray, or the jackets hung, or storage area. Those naturally translate at home as well. So, skills I learn in school day to day and etiquette are definitely translated back at home, or when they greet people. The common courtesy is definitely followed, table manners when they're eating, and just the overall intangibles that they do bring from the school environment. It does definitely translate the day-to-day at home as well as in the community. When we're approached with strangers or out in the community, their friendliness is definitely there, the warm nature that the teachers are examples, and they kind of mirror those behaviors when they're out in the community as well. So in turn, they have no issues. And when we introduce extracurricular activities, we take language classes on the weekend for cultural reasons. They don't have issues learning a different, another second or third language at times. So those things do help when you have a really good school routine and school, mirroring those examples, that when you take extracurriculars, they all naturally translate into learning those
And
skills.
also because I think they spend a lot of time learning new things where they're very accustomed to it, right? So they don't have any apprehensions about, oh, this is something new, I don't know about it. And they don't have any apprehensions about learning it. And they're a lot of the time they're actually very much looking forward to, oh, I don't know this. Okay, I can learn this.
Yeah, or I try it. There's no fear to challenging themselves or trying new things. And in fact, they embrace it. They always have a very inquisitive mind. And I think that's part of the school curriculum as well. And, philosophy to cultivate independence, to cultivate curiosity. And I think they do a very good job with that at a very young age. And from a taller age, they do infuse those intangibles from the onset, and it definitely translates as you move it to the higher grades. I know from my younger child, because he's in a campus where food is provided. So meals, lunch, snacks, those are his favorite things. Just because they're very healthy. I mean, they do have a catering company and the menu is released. But I think because it's just different from perhaps what we eat at home culturally, that, and luckily he doesn't have any food allergies, but he does, share with us, what he ate that day or what snack he has. And he looks forward to the meals, and then he and then the others also feedback of how they eat. But he's always had good eating habits. But I think in turn the teachers do a good job to infuse the nutritional part of it, and in turn he knows that but because he's still young, right? So obviously those, but he does enjoy the Montessori, the younger one, the Montessori. Toys or practices in there, because they're very hands-on. So, when he does use those resources part of his learning, he does have a better memory of them because they're all tangible, and he's applying, 1+1, and he's applying the Montessori curriculum and the skills and the tools I use into that. So I think my younger one does like those tangible ones.
I think surprisingly, because he's always seen his older brother have homework every day. As soon as he started getting homework this year, he was very excited about it. He goes, oh, I have it too. And when you pick him up, he'll tell you, oh, I have this for homework. I have this test tomorrow. I need to review this. He was very much excited about it, which is which at first I thought, okay, over time it will start to dwindle. But no, we're now in May. He's still very excited about, I have this for homework. I have this quiz tomorrow.
So what kid likes homework, but I think he treats it as just a continuity of what he learned that day. And then in practice,
it's something he can accomplish. And also is something that he sees his brother doing. So he can be a big boy too. Right. So it's something that's well fostered in the school, I think.
There is that enjoyment of learning. I do believe that it is there. And in term, homework isn't an issue. In fact, it's embraced as just part of, the exercise you do as a student.
It takes a lot of pride in, I know this now, or I'm able to do this now. There's a lot of pride in him with the new skills and new things that he learned over time.
Yeah. And with the older one, there is more projects, and certain projects he has more interest to do. But I think he does like the project that is given. He understands there's a time management aspect of it, a specific deadline that he has to meet. But there's always sufficient time to do it. But some of those projects are very challenging. They stretch his imagination of how to present it, display it if it's on a Bristol board, for example, or how does he prepare his presentation. So he does like those elements of it, in which I do enjoy doing it with him. There's an element at this young age of parent supervision and assistance. But for the most part, as you get older, then you kind of take control over it. You put your creative spin on it. So I think he does enjoy those aspects of a project and the whole planning part behind that. So I do believe the school does have thoughtfulness in what projects that they do assign to.
I think with him is that with Ethan, because he does enjoy the math and sciences as more than other subjects, he enjoys learning new things and be able to tell you that he knows it. So for him, he gets a lot of joy out of, I learned this, I know this now, I can do that. So that and gym. What boy doesn't like gym? So he enjoys gym class. Before COVID, there was, they had regular gym class, and he certainly enjoyed those a lot.
Right.
I think, at least for me, from an administrative side, the school does a very good job of, from an administrative side, in terms of this is what the curriculum is. I know at the beginning of the year, I know, okay, these are things that they're going to learn. That's what they're going to do. I have that up front. Can expect that these are the things that will be learned along the way. And they happen, right? Every year you see at the end, yep, they did all the stuff they said they would do. And then throughout the year, I'm well informed. I'm well informed of what's going on, what's good, what's bad. If there's any issues, I know about it very promptly. And the administration is very good regarding dealing with any issues. It doesn't happen often, like throughout the year, since for the last 6-7 years, usually there isn't much problems. And because we speak with the teachers at least a few times a week.
Right.
Just because throughout after school and before school care, you tend to see the teachers rotate through those, and you tend to see the teachers on a regular basis. So we know exactly what's happening, and there's no surprises. But then every so often, when there is an issue, things are dealt with very quickly. They're dealt with very thoughtfully, right? They're not just trying to get rid of the problem in terms of stop the complaining. They're actually trying to do what's right for the child, and there's a respect. Ultimately, what I really appreciate is that there's a respect from the administration and the teachers of the parents and the well-being of the child, right? Everything that stems from that. For me, that's the thing that mattered the most to me.
Yeah, I think for me, I appreciate the teachers' authenticity, their general interest for my children, and they recognize that each child is unique. So there's no comparison. This is Ethan. This is what he's good at. This is how he behaves. That's his personality. They embrace it. And they work with that. Every child has their strengths and weaknesses, but I definitely feel like they embrace his strengths and not to hide his weaknesses, but just to help him improve and work with that into the class environment, and recognize there's inclusion of all the students, their strengths and weaknesses, and play his weaknesses, and then in terms of how does it integrate it, as part of it, and not make it a weakness, but perhaps they can channel that energy in a different manner, so that it plays well in a classroom setting.
I think that the teachers do a very good job, because it's a pretty small class, right? And it's a pretty small class, so the teachers have a good opportunity to know each other well. And on top of that, because the teachers they've been there, there's very little turnover with the teachers. So they kind of all see them growing up. So they know them. By the time they show up at their class, they kind of know them already. And what they've done historically is that they're very good at personalizing how a child learns, personalizing to what the child needs, right? So if a certain child, they are more active, or they're more or quiet, they will accommodate the teaching and activities in the class for them, accommodating that child specifically. So we're very happy about that. I think for me now, in the higher grades, probably like grade 4 and 5, I think what I would want is that if they had a little bit more in terms of technology, lessons, like for example, simple coding, scripting, things like that. That that is that would definitely be required down the road. I think if the next piece to improve on for the school is start putting some resource and classes towards that, right?
Yeah, and perhaps even just introduce those elements of it at a young age. The idea of, I know at a young age you learn patterns, but then slowly progress a little further to coding when when they're already reading and writing, they understand the mathematics behind it a little bit better and have that grasping. Then I believe you can introduce it. And I think it's just a matter of creatively adding it to the curriculum at the appropriate times. Whether it's in the math or sciences. But as we progress to technology, I think the children of this generation will definitely will be more exposed to it than our generation. And in turn, I think children, of this age are well versed to, kind of integrate it, because it's so readily already available in the community, or, in terms of tangibility of using technology like a computer or just those kind of things. Then I think there is that interest there. And so I believe the school perhaps could put some resources behind that to make it a better program. For me, generally, it's not, I guess, because the school only goes to grade 5. So I feel like there's that limit, like there's an upper limit of grade there. Obviously, I would wish, because we enjoy the program so much, that they would continue beyond just the elementary program and into middle school.
Just so I don't have to look for another school.
Yeah, but obviously that's a personal concern, but not to ding the school on that. But, it's such a great program that I would wish that it continued beyond, the elementary years. And therefore, it's a problem that I personally will have to face. But I think all the families will as well. And then, I have to roll the dice and find other schools in the community, whether it's private or public again. And so those are all common questions. But other than that, I think generally they do a really good job holistically of infusing the academic and, as a very holistic child for improvements. But, those are the key things, I think, from each of us. I think the first time I walked in to the school, it's just a calm and quiet nature. The children, I remember my first even engagement, I saw a line of children going to the bathroom.
They're all lining up in
They're
their
all
little uniforms. There's no craziness.
Yeah, there's
The
no
kids are lining up.
screaming, there's no yelling. It was all orderly. There's a teacher in front, there's a teacher behind. The children are in between in a line going to the bathroom. The children, I mean, they're not muted, but like they understand that we're going to the bathroom, okay? And there's an orderly fashion of which we do it in. And then, the doors are open, but the children are not like in each of the classrooms disrupting each of it, and enabling the doors could be open, but I believe at a daycare setting where it's play-based, and perhaps there's an escalated noise thing that
I think the word you're looking for is chaos.
Yeah. And so anyway, so there's that calmness, and in turn you see it in the children, because
Yes.
they understand there's that routine, right? There's an order to things. They understand which activities are happening next. So there's no element of surprise.
It's well controlled. It's well controlled, and the key is that the kids know what is supposed to be happening. Right. So
they kind of know, in the morning we do these classes or these courses, and we have lunch, we have these school breaks of snacks and outdoor time. So there's no chaos. And I think that in itself, I was like, wow, I'm pretty impressed. They could be able to keep the children at a very young age orderly, but consistently, and the manners. I noticed that the older children, they would greet me, oh, you're Ethan's mom, you're Ethan's dad, hello. And over the years, because there's still that camaraderie, or they understand that's the behavior of older children, the younger ones sort of mirror that as well. There's a bit of mentorship and seeing, oh, the big brother does this, and I should follow this. So and you see the progression as you go, at the years. And so I think that happens too. So that etiquette translate from when you're 5 till you're 8 till you're 10. And that, those roles are definitely very visible. That really surprised me as well.
I would say they really do focus on academics, right? Everything else is important, but ultimately they're there to learn. All the basics are there, right? They spend the proper time on math, reading, writing, and it's a very good progression. It is a complete system from when they are 18 months all the way to grade 3. That's as far as I know at the moment, right? There's no gaps in between. It's in that the skills they learned in junior kindergarten are used directly in senior kindergarten, and they build on those. There's no gaps, right? So I think it's a very well thought out system. And now obviously on top of that, they have the other stuff around it, like extracurricular stuff. Like before COVID, they did skating, gymnastics, like those, and they used to do swimming, and then they used to have field trips. Like those things are all there, right? But fundamentally, you realize that academic is the thing that will not get sacrificed. And for us, that matched exactly what we wanted. We wanted academics to be number one, but not completely, not at the expense of everything else. So they strike a very good balance with that.
For me, the value is all the intangibles. I think past the academics, one has to be a very good citizen, a kind and compassionate person. So at the core of it, I think they do teach that humanitarian side of it, that children at this age is able to absorb at the optimum level, to mirror the examples of the adults in their life, like the principal, the teachers that are there, and kind of translate those values day to day. And I think the school does a very good job with that. The intangibles of leadership skills, the qualities of independence, showing empathy.
They come out as good little people.
Yeah. So those things I value because, outside of the day-to-day academics, then I think in the long run, in your growth, in your adulthood, those are things that if you don't learn them now, at the age of 5 and 8, when do you learn it? And I think we can only do so much at home as parents because we can only see them outside of school hours, and the rest we have to leave it to and a responsible adult to undertake. And those are the administrators and the teachers. And so I think those are the values that they do hire quality teachers that mirror their values and philosophy, and it definitely translates into our children. So I think if you are looking for that balance, then this school has that value as well. Into it, that practice what they preach, in what they do every day as human beings themselves. Our children is also subscribing to that. So I do believe that is a value add, and generally affordability too, because you're paying for a private program, right? So not many families can afford all that, but they do make it reasonable, in terms of cost savings, putting money behind certain resources and saving in other areas to keep the fees low for it to be affordable to families of all walks of life, right? So I appreciate that element of it.
The money is spent, you can see that from the school, the money is spent on the things that really matter, and not
for the student,
and not for show, right? Like there's, I think we talked about it where, it's not like there's a huge grand piano in the foyer, right? Like that will show well, but it doesn't help the kids. So for them, they really do. They spend the money in the places that needs it and will do the most good for the child.
Yeah, I think another example is a readers. Perhaps your child is learning to read that book or reader, but likely once they've gone through that, by the end of it, they're not going to likely use it again because their reading levels beyond that reader that they used it to learn. So perhaps you can reuse it, for the future. For the future students that would use it for that grade. So the idea that you should take care of a borrowed material as opposed to ownership of that material. Like I could pay for it and own it, but likely I'm not going to use it next year again because my child has already exceeded that reading level. But perhaps we can reuse it again, for the next student. And then the idea of care of a borrowed material so that your peers will use it, on that same grade. So that in itself, helps on cost, right? The book fee
It's really easy.
reasonable.
It'd be easy for them to just make you buy new books every year, right? It'd be easy for them to do, but like they don't. So they try to reuse the books from the previous years, and it makes the kids, okay, you got to take care of it because another kid's going to use it in next year, right? So
sense of responsibility and care for materials. I mean, behind that trait, and those traits are behind that initiative. But it takes,
it takes effort.
It takes effort, administratively. You have to collect it. You have to make sure that it's not tattered. You have to, count how many you're. I mean, there's an element of administration behind that. But the easy alternatives, they could just, ask you to buy new books, right? Pay for it, that book that costs $20, and then, have that parent pay for it. But instead, they decided that that's not a good use of money, that perhaps the parent could have invested that $20 towards other resources, right? That would be applicable for that child, and that material isn't one of them. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
They're warm. They're genuine.
Yeah.
They really, seek out the well-being of my child.
Yeah.
And I guess it speaks because my child has gone there for the oldest one for 6 to 7 years. The same teachers, for the most part, 80% of them are still there, including the toddler teacher, and one of which retired, rightly so, due to the age. But the lady that taught my child at 2 is still teaching
the toddlers there.
So I think that speaks a little bit to the school itself, to give credit that the administration must be doing well. They must have a good teamwork going on, right? That there's a amount of respect between teachers and staff members and their peers, as well as the administration, that I think goes a long ways.
I find that like both the administration and the teachers, there's definitely professional pride there. Like they take pride in doing a good job for the children, right? There's there are things along the way where you can, they could have made their lives easier, right? If they did things a certain way, but they chose not to because it would be better for the child. They took that extra step, right? So as I said, like over the years, the times when I have to speak with a teacher about something or about the administration about something, they always try to do their best. They'll do as much as they could for whatever is best for the child, right? And also to just help out the parents, right? Because I think from what I understand, most of them are their parents themselves, so they understand. They get, okay, sometimes you need a little help in terms of, maybe the child needs a little help here or certain things, and they've been very flexible, very supportive, and the kids all like them. That's the other thing, right? Yeah. Like you never hear. I haven't heard any of my kids complain about any of the teachers. Right? It just doesn't happen.
I mean, they might have preferences, on a certain teaching style of one, but generally there's amount of respect.
Yes.
And I think that respect translates between teachers of different classes. And I do feel like they're friends. Perhaps I'm not sure if they're friends outside of their school and their personal lives or their families, but they are definitely, peers, and they respect each other. And I definitely see that just in the day-to-day engagements and how they treat each other. Their words are kind, they're thoughtful, they're considerate. And I think that translates too with the parents. And in turn, they exhibit those behaviors between their peers when they work together, as well as their students and the parents as well. They're very courteous, respectful, and they use the appropriate words to articulate themselves or, their concerns or what they're trying to address. And those are things as a school environment, I could definitely feel that, with just the idea that the teachers are here a long time, the low turnover.
A good example of that was like when because of COVID, I think last year we started doing online learning in April, right? Pretty much once they announced, okay, we're going online, the school started the process of doing it. And in the beginning, and all the teachers are
within 2 weeks, I would say.
Yeah, 2-3 weeks they were up and running, and I would say the kids were getting exactly what they were getting in person, as much as you could remotely as possible, right? And you do see that because we're there, we see it every day, right? You do see that, okay, the teachers in the beginning, they struggled a little bit with it, just like anyone else did, right? But within the 2-3 weeks, they got it down packed, right? And you can tell it was not an accident. They put time and effort into it. They're not phoning it in. They're okay. I need to still teach these things to the kids. How am I going to do it, right? And there was a lot
I think we completed all the requirements towards the end of the year. Like, I don't think we missed anything
didn't miss a beat.
in terms of tests, even projects.
Yep.
They've just
Projects still got done.
adjusted for it to be in virtual setting, whether you presented your project, over a camera. But the teachers, both ladies, adjusted to how the presentation should be. They had a schedule of when the children would be presenting, for example. So all the requirements were all there. They just adjusted accordingly so that the child, with the aim goal of completing the curriculum, by June, in a timely fashion, and they didn't miss any of the elements.
And even the little one was 4 years old. Was it? Yeah, he was 4-year-old last year, and he still got. I would say he got everything he was supposed to get from his class remotely, and that's not easy to do with a 4-year-old, right?
Yeah. And it kind of gave us, a little bit of an education of what the teachers were doing in the class. Because before we would be working, we would never see any of those engagements at all in how they teach. And I guess the online learning experience, because we had to, I'm not saying we're hovering over them, but we did have to assist. We still monitored from afar. But when our children are online, we would likely be in the background. We're not in screen with the child, but we had to assist. So we actually heard the conversations, how they taught. And it really put our decision, to enroll the school, to confirm, we made the right choice. And these were the star teachers that really,
I would say they went online better than some companies I've seen.
Yeah. So I was very impressed. And I think they also, in learning that, through the summer, they, understood that they were well thought out of how are they going to reopen, how, what are the options they have to, navigate through in the event people had to go shut down or outbreak, or the province said, you got to go online. How can we do it better? And so with that in mind, they, allowed every student to.
They did good planning over the summer for the restart of the year, in that, again, didn't miss a beat. And, during we had from September to December, they were in class, and afterwards we had shutdowns and stuff like that. They just, shut down starting tomorrow, online, and kids didn't miss a beat. Yeah. Classes kept going, so can't complain.
All right. And what would you say the sense of community among parents is like? Is there a typical family that attends ABC?
Well, I think so for us, because again, the turnover is not that high, right? And the other things that we tend, as the classes get older, you tend not to get anyone new coming in, right? And most of the time, the kids kind of all grew up together. And with the parents, the one theme is that everyone there, at least the parents do care, because if not, you wouldn't spend the time, money, and effort there, right? So you can tell that all the other parents, they care about education, they care about their kids doing well, and they were certainly very, even though culturally, obviously, there's very different cultures and religion among the students and the family, but they all share very similar values in terms of making sure that the kids have good education, good manners, and things like that. And I think if over the years, if you didn't agree with those and you didn't jive, you might not stick around, because it takes effort and obviously money to stay with it every year. So I think I think most of the classes among the parents, they all have their own little chat rooms, and
but the chat rooms are facilitated to say, hey, my child forgot their homework.
Exactly.
Or they forgot to write the page number. So those community, amongst the parents, are more to help with the gaps of my child's errors or the child's oversight. And then, if there were a concern, then it was like, hey, my child did this, and did you guys do that? Or, my child was absent, what did they do in class? So those kind of communities are definitely there. And I think there's a amount of friendship that do within the school, especially if your child has been in the program for more than a year, right? And there's that welcoming environment as well, that, hey, this is a new student, this is a new parents, and you would welcome them. And for example, if what to expect, we're going to have a Christmas winter concert in December, what's the expectation, what do they do, like kind of share pictures or anecdotal things that to look out for, to expect, for example, of your child when they're going through the concert. So I think most parents look forward to it. There's a winter concert. The children start, as early as September, at the end of September, October, to look forward to do it and practice their dance routine, their singing. So, as parents, you kind of like on the side, hey, do you know what they're doing? Kind of, share a little, like, what the whispers are at home, or what they're doing. So it's sort of those things that we really build that friendship. And then I think there's an element that we're supportive of one another.
We know all the kids' parents, and they all know us. So
and then obviously get invited to birthday parties when they're younger. It's appropriate, but there's also outside of activities, like if they go skating, some parents might allow it in their work schedule to see the skating that happens during the day, and then you chat, hey, how's it going, what have you been doing? So we do share what other things that we're doing around the household, or just not necessarily about school, but just about their family and religion or whatever. You're celebrating Eid, or you're celebrating something, you kind of like wish them well and how they're doing. So there's that element of parent concern and friendship there.
I would say number one is that they do a good job in terms of teaching the academics and also all the other pieces around it. There's a good balance. Okay. Number two is the fact that the administration, the teachers, that professional pride, when you see that in action, there's a level of trust I have in terms of, I know that they'll do a good job. I know my children will be well taught and taken care of. And I know that if there's an issue, they'll tell me about it and they will work with me to solve it, right?
And for me, it'd be affordability.
Yeah.
I think it's
reasonable.
It's reasonable.
It's reasonable.
They use the money that our tuition goes well. It's well managed. Funds are allocated appropriately, and it's not crazy expensive where a family could not afford it, and it wouldn't even be considered. For us, there's that element of affordability. I think is of value too.
It's a good balance, and like I said, both our kids are in there, and they would stay in there until they're done.
Yeah.
Register early. Don't wait.
Yeah, that's true. Because the toddler program, because of the size of school, they only have one class. So if you're already thinking in that direction, potentially a private school, or even just the idea of daycare initially, and play-based may not be your preference, then I would say, and you're very key for academics to start the learning early, then I would suggest register early, only because there's limited spots in the toddler program.
We got lucky because back then we didn't know. So we were lucky in that I think one of the kids got moved to an older class. So we suddenly had a spot like in January. So he kind of got in there like that, right? Otherwise he wouldn't have even had a spot. And from what I see every year, the toddler class is always full.
Yeah.
And even last year, I think it was last year, a year before, even with the younger child on his next class, like you had to get registered in there quickly.
Yeah.
Because the spots fill
Basically
really fast.
anything, even senior kindergarten, the equivalent in public school, or junior kindergarten, even grade 1 this year, when we had to enroll for next year for our younger child, they were all full.
Yeah.
So it speaks to a level of interest, and that obviously if you're going to go to grade 1, you likely would have completed the previous like JK and SK equivalent of public school to continue, and they want to, right? And then the spaces are limited, but I would suggest that if you do have an interest that way, just to inquire, go for the scheduled time,
Call and
them,
ask, and
inquire, take a tour.
well, I
And
think COVID, they probably can't
yeah,
do a
no,
tour
well,
now, but yeah.
past COVID, but I mean, like, if it's not COVID times, then I mean, now they even have like virtual, like, how you look, but generally it's a clean facility, talk to the
Talk to the
administrators
administrators.
and then, observe the children. And if those are things that, like my experience the first time around, if you had that shock too of the noise, at least for me, then you would understand that
The kids are happy, and the kids are well controlled, and they're happy. And the other thing is, I think if I were to tell myself, because both of us, we went through the public system, right? So we didn't have any real concept of what the private school system would be like. So you're always thinking, oh, well, if I could go back and tell myself, be relaxed, this will be fine. It'll be better than what you went through when you were a kid, right? So that's what I tell myself, just relax, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that would be true as well. But yeah, I would tell myself, you did great. You got very lucky to find a school that met your need. But I mean, for Ethan, we went through at least 2 play-based daycare facilities in the area. And then you kind of discover, perhaps that's not meeting the need, or that's not meeting the need of the child, and you're going to look elsewhere. And if you're looking for something academically based, I would say this
We
school
have,
was
since the
definitely there.
kids went into this school, we haven't ever looked elsewhere.
Yeah.
There was never even a contemplation. I think because it's the natural gaps where you think about, okay, maybe I should move them back to the public systems, kind of like after senior kindergarten, grade 1, right? Like even then it was like, yeah, we're not going to do that. It's just not, it doesn't even come up anymore, because part of the problem is that the gap is so big now academically. If I were to put my kids back into the public system, they would spend a year and change not learning anything.
Yeah, or being very bored.
And
they would likely digress as well.
Yeah, and little kids, if they're not learning something new and they're bored, all types of chaos will ensue.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.